Party.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday lawyers from the Maliseet Nations Conservation Council, the Conservation Council of New Brunswick, the Nature Trust, Nature NB and WWF Canada sent a demand letter to the Minister of Natural Resources and Energy concerning many long-standing violations of New Brunswick's Species at Risk Act by the Minister, which he has not remedied despite their correspondence of 6 months ago. They identified many failures of the Minister to comply with the Act's statutory duties, including the failure to prepare and publish management and recovery plans for species at risk, and the failure to prepare and publish assessments of the feasibility of recovery for those species at risk. Will the Minister comply with the demands of the groups to carry out his legislative responsibilities, or is he going to force them to commence proceedings in New Brunswick's Court of Queen's bench against him? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Minister of Natural Resources and Energy Development in the gallery.
Mr. Speaker, I appreciate on the last day of the session having a chance to reply to a member's question. As it relates to the species at risk and the significant respect I have for the stakeholders and the non-government organizations that represent such, I'm here to say that we are certainly taking their information seriously. We are certainly taking that conversation seriously. We have been in communication with them, and we are engaging to ensure that the committees are put in place to do just that. Keep in mind that this does fit part and parcel to the work that we've been doing hand in hand with those very same organizations to expand and double the protected natural areas of the province of New Brunswick. See, certainly that goes beyond just talking about land mass. It talks about sensitive areas where those species at risk require habitat. We take that very seriously. Our door's been open, and we will absolutely, with an open hand, work towards making sure that the climate is favorable for these species at risk. Absolutely, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Fredericton South and Unionist Party.
Well, Mr. Speaker, apparently those same organizations have lost their patience with the chronic and systemic failures of successive ministers of natural resources to safeguard wild species and implement the Species at Risk Act in this province, because it's threatening the survival of hundreds of wild species. The Atlantic Canada Conservation Data Centre will soon release its assessment for 2020, but 5 years ago it identified 701 wild species that are at high risk or very high risk of extinction in New Brunswick. The vast majority of endangered species have been left without the legal protection of the Species at Risk Act since it came into force 8 years ago. If that's not a massive failure of successive governments to safeguard their habitat, manage their populations, and provide for recovery strategies, I do not know what is. The hard evidence of failure is there for everyone to see, Mr. Speaker. Will the Minister comply with his legal duties under the Species at Risk Act?
The Minister of Natural Resources and Energy Development in the gallery.
Mr. Speaker, I'm not prone to answers that are very short or brief, but that work's absolutely already started. Now I will remain and continue to take the rest of the minute because the member opposite has made a point that in the past there has been issues, there has been deficiencies. Species at risk have been marginalized, and quite honestly, they have a very important place at the table. But I'm also very proud to say that we can look in the past and talk about governments and ministers of natural resource in the past and how that hasn't been a focus, but that is not the case today. That is not the case today. And I would ask the member opposite to speak to those organizations and ask them if they've ever had the unfettered access to the Department of Natural Resources like they have now. The answer is no. Have they ever had access to the information, the data and the science about how we can make things better going forward? The answer is no. And I would answer it unequivocally and absolutely that yes, the work will be done to ensure species at risk.
Minister. The member for Fredericton